Welcome into Around the Felt. This is your Week 15 recap. And boy, was it an action-packed week. I'm your host, Reagan Losher. Here with me tonight is my co-host, Mr. Colin Tom. How we doing, dude?
Doing great, man. What a fun day of football it was yesterday. I did pretty well with my picks this week. You, on the other hand, not so hot, my friend. But of course, we'll dive into that in a little bit.
No need.
Well, let's get started. A lot of news, man. A lot of injuries in a really tough point of the season for these teams and for your fantasy teams. We'll start with Patrick Mahomes, a mild ankle sprain. We've seen him play through an ankle sprain in the past on the way to a Super Bowl title. But with the Chiefs, at 12-1, 13-1, sitting pretty good. Now the Bills are right there, though. Bills are right there, which adds a little bit more tension. They play on Saturday and then the following week on Christmas. So 2 games and I believe an 11-day span from this point on will be tough for Mahomes to play through it. Do you think he does? And can they still win with Carson Wentz at the helm?
I mean, they definitely can still win with Carson Wentz. It'll be interesting, but I think to be honest, the fact that they're technically 2 games up on the Bills, but it's more like 1 because the Bills obviously have the head-to-head. I think they'd be willing to let him sit this week because they really do control their own destiny when it comes to that 1 seed. And I mean, obviously Buffalo presumably will win out with 2 games against New England and 1 against the Jets over the last 3, and Drake London first touchdown. So yeah.
Oh, they just scored?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's the dagger in my fantasy matchup, man. Eliminated.
I didn't even realize that.
Oh, that is terrible. The wheel lost, and that's the dagger. I officially lost my dynasty league that I was the defending champ. That one really hurts. For another Around the Felt member, Ryan Lewison, just took me out. I took him out last year, though, so, I can't be too salty about it.
Lou with the big win. Attaboy.
That's
But I'm going back to the Chiefs. So I do think they'll probably let Mahomes sit at least 1 game. It just doesn't make sense to push him to play when you essentially have the 1 seed locked up.
I would agree with that. I think he sits this Saturday, and then maybe we'll see what happens as the games unfold this weekend, and maybe he comes back for Christmas Day. But, at 13-1, they're going to make the playoffs. But, of course, that bye, very important. Some other injuries. Man, the Detroit Lions just can't catch a break. They finally are a juggernaut team. And this week alone, they lose David Montgomery, Aleem McNeil, who's just got – both those guys just got extensions in October. McNeil's been having the best year of his career. And Carlton Davis, all are lost for the season. This defense is paper thin right now, where it's to the point similar to the Bills. I feel like every game for these 2 teams from here on out is going to be an absolute shootout. But this is really, really tough for the Lions, especially when you have Philly right there, and Philly is pretty healthy right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, Detroit is, I mean, obviously talk about their defense, David Montgomery being gone as well with the MCL tear or sprain, whatever it was for the year. It's just trending the wrong way for Detroit, and it's just very upsetting for them. I mean, it's not even like the season's over, but it's, I just feel like at this point, I would not be putting my money on Detroit, even if they are the 1 seed, because I just feel like the way it's going, they're going to get to a point where they just can't overcome all these injuries because you still got to put together, like even if they get the first round bye, you still got to win 3 in a row. And that's just going to be tough to do come playoff time, not being 100% or even close to it.
Yeah, and you can make the case with no David Montgomery that Jameer Gibbs down the stretch might be the number 1 player in all of fantasy football. It's certainly debatable.
Yeah. And I would say, Craig Reynolds is definitely a guy, if you're desperate, it would be a guy I would go out and target. I mean, he's going to be involved. He'll get some goal line work. So he's a name to definitely keep an eye on. And I would be picking him up when waivers run this week. And honestly, if you play DFS as well, he's a very interesting name for the price point.
For sure. Geno Smith hurts his knee. As of right now, the severity is unknown, but for a Seahawks team that's right in the thick of things for the NFC West, this certainly is not good. At least they have a backup in Sam Howell, who has a full year of starting experience under his belt. But although we're both not big Geno Smith believers,
No,
he's certainly a better player and more suited for a playoff push than Sam Howell at this point of their careers.
hallelujah. No, yeah, it's not. That is not a good hallelujah. It's I'm happy at least we get to see the Sam Howell experience, but I don't know. I mean, because early on in the year, I was saying I thought we would see Sam Howell, but I didn't think we would be seeing him due to injury. I thought it would be based off of Geno's play. And really, Geno hasn't been great this year at all. He's been very average or below average. It's the defense has been playing better, and it's the weapons and really the run game. Like Charbonnet and Walker have been gashing defenses this year. So definitely is not a lot to deal with Geno Smith's play. But it'll be interesting to see what Sam Howell can do. I mean, he's obviously a very talented guy. I mean, if he has a good, junior or sophomore, junior year at UNC, I mean, he's going number one overall. Like he was projected to be potentially the top quarterback taken. And, he was a guy that unfortunately, stuck around too long and suffered from it. So the
Yeah, for
talent is
sure.
there.
Yeah, and he has the weapons around him. I mean, DK Metcalf and JSN are one of the top receiving duos in the league this year so far. You mentioned the run game. Like the pieces are there. Howell was able to push the ball downfield and have a ton of passing yards when he didn't really have much around him for Washington. The problem was the turnovers and holding the ball too long and getting sacked too much. We'll see if he cleans that up a little bit. Seattle desperately will need it if Geno Smith were to miss a substantial amount of time.
Well, it's also funny too because as soon as he came in last night, he was getting sacked like crazy, and I'm like, it's just like Washington, like
There
you
you
know,
go.
and a lot of it wasn't the offensive line's fault. It's like he just holds onto the ball and sits in that pocket way too long, so he's gonna have to figure that out if he wants to succeed.
100%. The Ravens and Deonte Johnson and his camp agree to excuse him from team activities. Clearly still figuring out his role. Can't seem to get him to buy in to this program right now. Really tough look. You gave up a draft pick at the deadline. Now, it wasn't a high draft pick, but still a draft pick to go get the guy to help your offense. But, I mean, it didn't matter against the Giants on Sunday. But then again, the Giants are the worst team in football. They were down their top 4 DBs. It's not going to be like that the rest of the way. Having some extra firepower in Deonte Johnson for the playoff stretch would be huge for this team, but you got to figure it out. This really sucks, especially for like Deonte Johnson fantasy holders too. I feel bad for you because he was having some big games in Carolina, and you're like, okay, now he gets to play with Lamar Jackson, a more high-powered offense. Could be a piece for your playoff championship push, but no, he's not going to be on the field. Really tough. Really hope that the Ravens can figure this one out before the playoffs.
Yeah, I really don't understand why it's not working out. And I mean, obviously, I don't think he would have been as good as what he was doing in Carolina for those few games and what he did in Pittsburgh. But I thought they would definitely use him. But I mean, it's all right. I mean, I guess they don't need him either. But you'd like to see them make it work. I mean, Bateman certainly had a good game this week, but I still feel like at this point, I'd rather Deontay Johnson. And obviously, Flowers has been a stud, and both tight ends we know are very good. So it would be awesome for them to get another weapon in there and get him incorporated, but something's just off. I don't know, but it just seems like they whiffed on that trade. But not only that, he's kind of hurting himself for a contract because this is a contract year for him. He's obviously, can sign wherever he wants next year, but like this attitude and this inability to get on the field with a good team is only going to hurt him when it comes to negotiating with other teams next year.
100%. And speaking of that, Devondre Campbell suspended 3 games by the Niners for refusing to play on Thursday. Very similar situation here. A guy just didn't want to play, didn't want to enter the game. I don't know what's going on with these guys these days, but this is a tough look for Campbell as well. And, I mean, he's had some really good years in the past. I don't think he's as quality of player as Deonte Johnson is, and the Niners are on the outside looking in the playoff picture right now. And with Dre Greenlaw coming back, I mean, clearly he's going to be the guy that gets the nod. Campbell was frustrated with that, just did not want to play. And the Niners were really pissed off. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, maybe the record that they have and the slump they've had this season kind of fueled that, but they didn't want to release him and allow him to sign on another contender and kind of feel like they're rewarding him. They were looking to suspend him, talking with the league office to penalize him out of their frustration, which I thought was a bold move as well. But, I mean, yeah, it seems like Campbell's days are numbered, and who knows if he even gets another opportunity in the league at this point.
Yeah, no, I think it's great they did it that way. Don't reward these guys by giving them what they want. Like, it's better now because, I ain't really sticking it to them. Like, if you let them go, they're getting exactly what they want. And you're rewarding them for throwing the fit. And I get he was all pissed off because Greenlaw was back, but still, like, you should have known, like, you knew coming into it that, like, you were a placeholder.
100%. How do you not understand that? Like, Greenlaw is a stud. He was their guy in the Super Bowl last year, Like, I mean, the writing was on the wall there. I don't know how you signed the deal and not understand that. I don't know. Very strange. Last but not least for the news, nothing crazy here, but the Chiefs release Clyde Edwards-Helaire the back at LSU, won a title with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, first-round pick. Just a huge, huge bust of a pick. Huge waste of a pick. I mean, luckily the Chiefs are that good where it's not going to come back to bite them. And when you draft Pacheco late in the draft, it makes up for it. But another example of maybe not taking running backs in the first round unless they are a blue chip stud type of player.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly kind of forgot he was even on the roster, and I guess they were really, it should have really told you about like kind of how he fared with the team. Where instead of turning to him, um, when obviously McKinnon went down and Pacheco went down, they went the likes of bringing in veteran running backs like P Ryan and Kareem Hunt. So that should have told you right away that he had lost good faith with the team, and he just was kind of only there for depth. So, and now that, Hunt's looked good enough or serviceable, and, Piron's the third down guy and Pacheco's back and fully healthy, I mean, there's really no role for him.
Yeah, and you watch Clyde play over the last couple of years. He just doesn't have it. He doesn't have the burst. He doesn't make people miss. He just kind of got what was given to him. And now I thought that was pretty evident. So this makes sense for Kansas City. All right, that wraps up the news. We got one question tonight from our friend Caleb. He's curious. The Bills are now the favorites to win the Super Bowl at plus 400 odds. Your thoughts on this? Is it worth taking at plus 400 after that win against Detroit?
Not at all. Let's not as great as their offenses looked, their defense has allowed over 40 points in the past two games. And, Josh Allen has had to be Superman. So if he even has any semblance of an off day, they're fucked. They're screwed. I mean, look at a team like the Philadelphia Eagles. They shut down that Rams offense in LA. And then you look at the Bills and, you're trailing from behind the whole entire game and you got to put up 40 points to even stay in it. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely think they could win the Super Bowl, but then you factor in all the, the negatives and the value. And to me, the value is not worth it. And the negatives outweigh the value. So I'm staying away from that. If it were like, closer to plus 1,000, I would definitely be interested. But and also still, like, until they can get past Kansas City in the playoffs, I just can't. I can't. I need to see it to believe it.
Yeah, that's where I was going to go. Like plus 400 just isn't juicy enough for me when you still inevitably will have to go through Kansas City unless this Mahomes injury is way worse than initially anticipated. But that's not the case here. At plus 400, the Bills do look like a juggernaut. Right now, Josh Allen is the monster favorite to win the MVP. But you mentioned it, the defense still has a lot of holes. Now, if they were to claim the 1 seed before the season ends and it goes through Buffalo, maybe I'd consider it. But then again, Kansas City beat them in Buffalo in the playoffs last year. So for me, it's more of a wait and see in the AFC. I'm not really punching my ticket for the Bills at plus 400 right now.
Yeah, plus if it's, going through Buffalo, then, that means that the value is only going to get even crazier. If they lock up the 1 seed, they'll probably go to plus 300. The plus 450 is reflecting that they're going to be not the 1 seed.
For sure. All right, let's move on to these games. Reagan, you ready to roll?
Yes, I am.
All right, for our picks this week. Now, this is pending the 2 Monday night games as they are live right now. Against the spread, I went 9-5, and I went 13-1 straight up. The lone loss was the Chargers. And unfortunately, the Chargers were up in that game for, a wide stretch. So that's tough. It would have been nice to be 14-0 and try to join the 16-0 club with Caleb, but unfortunately did not get it done. On the other hand, Reagan went 6-8 straight up and 2-12 against the spread.
Oh, man.
That's the worst I've seen against the spread in around the foul history, buddy. I'm not going to lie. That's pretty tough.
12 was what I get, the Eagles, and I got
you got the Packers and the Eagles.
Packers and the Eagles. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
all right.
That's tough. So on the season, you're now 101, 117-4 against the spread after a tough week. You're 125-97 straight up. I am 119, 99-4 against the spread. 20 games above 500. And I'm 144-78 straight up. So whooping your ass on both fronts there, my friend.
I'm not seeing it well this year.
But let's get into the games. Thursday Night Football. I did not get to watch this game. Had a holiday work event, unfortunately, but I didn't miss much here with a 12-6 Rams win. No touchdowns were scored. Four field goals for the Rams, 2 for the Niners. Brutal. Rams now 8-6. Niners 6-8. A monster win for them in the NFC West race. Stafford didn't do much. Only threw for a $160. Kyren Williams ran for over 100. The offense was fueled by Puka Nacua along with Kyren, who had 97 yards on 7 receptions. So he continues his hot stretch. For the Niners, Purdy, 14 of 31, under 50% completion percentage. That's really tough with a pick. Garendo had 16 for 57. Kittle, 4 for 61. Nothing else to write home about there. The brutal season for the 49ers continues here. Your thoughts in this game?
Yeah, I thought the Niners were going to get this one done. I thought for sure this was just a must win, but this season's really unraveled on them. It looks like, I mean, they're technically not eliminated yet, but I mean, they would have to win out and then, get some help from some other teams. So they're basically done. So just a lost season. And for the Rams, with the Seattle loss later on, obviously in the week, they now are first in the NFC West. And they kind of control their own destiny. They are 3-1 in the division. So I believe they have, let me look. They have, here we go. They have the Cardinals and the Seahawks left. So they, and the Jets, but just in the division. So
they control their own destiny.
They really do control their own destiny where, if they beat the Cardinals and the Rams, the Cardinals and the Seahawks, they should get in, no problem.
Absolutely. We got to talk about it. Cooper Kupp with a goose egg. He was just doing cardio out there. Really bit me in the ass in some fantasy playoff matchups to the point where I'm trading him in every league in the offseason. I don't care. I'm scarred.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's pretty clear that it's, Puka has taken over that role. A lot of people are like, I wouldn't draft Puka at 1. It's like a 1A, 1B. No, it's, it's pretty clear that Puka is now his favorite target and is the guy, and teams are going to hone in on him. So, just Kupp's he's just older and just not the number 1 for that team anymore. He's not the Triple Crown winner we saw a couple of years back.
100%. Now, last thing on this game. Do you think the Niners Super Bowl window is closed?
Definitely not. Definitely not. Because at the end of the day, let's remember here, they're missing a lot of, Brandon Ayuk, Trent Williams, Christian McCaffrey. I mean, you just name it. They got guys injured all over the place where, those guys get healthy. They bring in another name or two, whether it's the draft and whatnot, plug a couple holes. They'll be right back in it. I mean, I think if Christian McCaffrey plays all year, he at least gets 2 more wins, and then we're like not worried about him at all because they're 8-6 going into the last 3 games.
100%. I don't think it's closed, but it's getting there with the Purdy extension coming. But they can structure it so that you kind of kick the can down the road a little bit with that extension, which gives them some more breathing room. The only issue is their core is getting older for the most part. Trent Williams, I mean, how many more seasons does he have left? McCaffrey, with the injuries now, how many more seasons does he have left? Debo's been a shell of himself. He's not a young guy either. A lot of players are getting up there in age, and a lot of big contracts on the books where they can't fill a lot of those holes. I don't think it's closed, but next year is a very, very important year for the 49ers.
Oh, 100%. 100%, dude.
Moving on, the Chiefs take care of the Cleveland Browns 21-7. They finally covered the spread. Although it wasn't a sexy game, that defense was able to hold down Jameis Winston, who did not deliver him. God did not deliver him from picks. Pick sixes maybe, not picks though. Jameis threw for 146 and 3 interceptions here. Got benched for DTR, who was 4 of 9 for 18 in an interception. Now, they don't know who's starting next week in Cleveland. It's up for interpretation. However, they do have the Bengals, so I'd love to see Jameis Winston in action against Cincinnati. Yeah. Come on. How do you not give me Jameis against Cincinnati?
All of you, Jerry, Judy, David Njoku, Elijah Moore, even Jerome Ford now, because Nick Chubb, we didn't talk about in the news before, but he's out for the year.
Oh, yes, that's right. Broken foot.
He seems to have more juice. So if you're able to, if you had Jerome Ford or if he's out there on your waivers, he's a must pick up. I mean, he already looked better than Chubb and had more juice, but it was kind of 50-50 where now Ford's going to, take over that backfield and be the guy. So he's definitely a very interesting name and really interesting if Jameis keeps the job because Jameis moves the ball. You can't stack the box. where DTR really hurts everybody's value. I hope it's Jameis, dude. I got Jerry Jeudy on a couple fantasy playoff rosters right now, and if it's not Jameis, I'm putting him on the bench. I'm not risking it in the playoffs. Jameis, he's locked and loaded, wide receiver 1. DTR, he's borderline not even startable.
Yeah, that'd be really tough, especially with Cincinnati coming up. Ford did have 84 yards and a 62-yard touchdown. Jerry Jeudy, 11 for 108, continues his dominant stretch, top 5 in receiving in the league. What a turnaround for him. And for the Chiefs, Mahomes, 159, 2 touchdowns. Nothing crazy for him. The ground game was Xavier Worthy added a touchdown in the grounds. Receiving-wise, really nothing crazy. Worthy, their leading receiver, with 46. D-Hop had 36. Kelsey only 4 for 27. I mean, I didn't love this game for fantasy purposes and betting-wise because it's in Cleveland. These are 2 good defenses. But, the Chiefs still got to win, still staying afloat. We'll see how Carson Wentz does. He did complete both his passes here. Maybe a sign to come this upcoming Saturday. But, yeah, it's got to be Jameis Winston, man. It just has to be. The only way you don't is like, oh, let's see if DTR could be like our long-term backup and like it's already a wasted season. But, I mean, the way Jameis has kind of motivated this team, although it doesn't necessarily show up in the win column, I think it's got to be Jameis Winston going forward.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and that's just it with the locker room alone. Like, it's a lost season. You're not playing for much. I get, like, maybe you want to give DTR the chance, but it's like, you know what he is at this point. Like, what is there to prove at this point that you don't already know about him? So I would say, I would say let it roll with Jameis. Just focus on next year and just, see what you really have in a lot of these different options.
100%. Moving on, the Cincinnati Bengals take care of the Titans on the road, 37-27. We had another quarterback bench in this one with Will Levis. I was going against Levis in 2 playoff matchups this week.
That's bold. That's bold to start Levis, man.
In one league, he got -4.4, the other -1.4, throwing for 89 yards and 3 interceptions. Also, lost a fumble as well. So 4 turnovers for Will Levis, getting benched for Mason Rudolph. It was also in front of his ex-girlfriend, so poor Will. Losing your job in front of your ex, that's tough. Rudolph threw for 209, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Definitely looked a lot better. Tony Pollard did score in this one against that Cincinnati defense. But Tajay Spears, big game. 6 for 87 and a touchdown through the air. Okay. I see you, Tajay. Receiving-wise, Chigga
Tony Pollard did go down.
Yes, Tony Pollard did go down. I mean, do you know the severity?
I don't. I know he was able to return, but it's more so just, looking forward, moving on. Like, will he miss time and going forward? Because their season's lost. So if he's not 100%, they may hold him out, which just means, like if Tajay Spears is out there on waivers, which I'm sure he is in a lot of leagues because this is his first like big game this year, he's a must pick up.
Yeah. I mean, if there's no Pollard, he's going to get a ton of workload, and that's what you need in the playoffs. You need volume from your running backs. So that's a fine flex play if Pollard were to miss time. For the Bengals, Burrow continues putting up numbers. He did have a couple turnovers in this one, though, 2 picks, and also lost another fumble, but he did throw for 271 and 3 touchdowns, finding his main man, Jamar Chase, 9 times for 94, T. Higgins, 88 and a touchdown. Chase Brown continues his dominant stretch, 97 on the ground, a touchdown, also added another touchdown through the air. I don't care who's playing running back for the Cincinnati Bengals. Auto, start, and Chase Brown's looked really good the last
he's getting all
the months.
He's getting all the volume, man. He's like got 90% of like the snap
Herbert
share.
had 1 carry for 4 yards. Chase Brown had 24 carries and 3 receptions, 28 touches.
I mean, I saw this last year. The writing was on the wall with him last year. He had some juice last year with Joe Mixon, and everyone was like so like Zach Moss, like he's going to come over and take the backfield. Like, let's be honest here. But no, it was always clear Chase Brown had a lot of juice, and it's just, it's good the team gave him the opportunity to excel, and he's fully doing that.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with Chase Brown. He's looked like a really fine player for the Bengals. Hopefully
and
he's their guy next year, and I could see him getting drafted fairly high in fantasy drafts next year.
Oh, for sure. I feel like, if they don't draft anybody, which will scare people away, but look at Kyron. But I would think he'll be a 2nd-round pick next year for sure, because I view him very similar to with how Kyron was last year. Came on, took a couple weeks to come on, and then all of a sudden it was like, holy shit, like this guy's an RB1. He's getting all the touches. He's getting all the volume. And then, they may bring in someone next year and people might be like, oh, I don't know. Like, no, talent always wins out. And, you just got to stick with it. Like, don't worry about other guys they bring in because those are unproven assets.
The Commanders moved to 9-5 with a 1-point win over the 5-9 Saints, 20-19. This one got a little dicey. Some crazy stats here. I mean, Jake Haener started the game, went 4 for 10 for 49 yards. Rattler comes in, throws for 135 and a touchdown. Cedric Wilson throws for 21 yards and a touchdown, which to Kamara, the one-handed catch. So Haener starts the game and gets outproduced by two other guys, you could say, through the air. Kind of crazy, but true. Kendre Miller stepped in when Kamara got beat up, ran nine times for 46 yards. Receiving-wise, nothing really to write home about. I mean, Foster Moreau scored, Kamara scored, but, the Saints did battle here. The Commanders, Jaden Daniels looked good through the air, threw for 226, 2 touchdowns. Also added 66 on the ground. Surprised Brian Robinson only had 65 yards on 21 carries here. The Saints defense stood up at home on the ground, but then Terry McLaurin continues his best season of his career with 73 yards and 2 touchdowns. This game got a little dicey at the end when the ref stopped the clock when he wasn't supposed to, allowed the Saints to get another playoff. They scored.
I don't know, though. I get
2.
that, but I think they still spike it and have a second, like looking at it.
Yeah, it's a lot of controversy right now. People are like, "Oh, I had Commander spread or this and that," and that's what happens when you endorse all the gambling. Anytime something sketchy like this goes on, everyone just freaks out and thinks the game is rigged.
Yeah, and I mean, at the end of the day, like both teams, had so many opportunities in the game, so you can't just point to one thing. I mean, my big takeaway from really on the Commander side is like you gotta fix some things. And I know they were without their starting center in this game, but Jaden Daniels getting sacked 8 times by like the Saints defensive line, which isn't really, they got some guys, but they're definitely not regarded as one of the top like pass rushing teams in the league. So, that's not going to bode well come playoff time if you can't keep Daniels upright. And, he obviously already saw early in the year, like he missed that whole entire Panthers game. And, that's probably precautionary based off a matchup with the broken rib. So, you can't have him getting banged up and having to roll with Marcus Mariota because we know what his ceiling is.
100%. And I also still am not fully bought in this Commanders team. I feel like they beat who they should beat, but they struggle against the higher tiered competition. And you can't get sacked 8 times against that higher tier competition. It's just not going to work out. But, you do have to give credit to the Commanders. Their defense does look much improved heading into the playoffs. So we'll see what they can do, man, with the Rook.
Yeah, I mean, right now it looks like they'll probably end up being the 7th seed. So then you're going to be either traveling to Philly, Detroit, or even Minnesota.
That'll be fun. At least we get to watch that Commanders offense in one of those matchups. Like Commanders Lions in a playoff matchup would be a lot of fun, dude. That'd be a lot of points. Moving on.
Especially with the state of the Lions defense right now, too.
100%. 100%. Moving on. Not going to spend a ton of time on this game because I don't really want to. But the Ravens take care of business 35-14 against my Giants. One step closer to the number 1 overall pick for Big Blue. Now at 2-12. The Ravens 9-5. Coming off a bye, Lamar Jackson, what'd he say before the bye? He's pissed off. He's already looking at the Giants, ready to go. And he completes 21 of 25 passes for 290 yards and 5 touchdowns. Nearly a flawless performance here. Derrick Henry didn't have his best day in the ground, only 67 yards. I can't believe he didn't score in this one against this Giants run defense with no Okereke, no Dexter Lawrence. They held their own. I mean, you could say they held their own. And I know a lot of people probably got burnt hard by the Horse in fantasy playoffs this week. And Horse was a minus 325 to score a touchdown. That's
Holy
nuts.
Shit.
I know.
Yeah, that is crazy. And I think his under and rushing would have hit too, right? Because you said he had 67?
Oh, I had a long shot parlay, like an alt line 150 plus for Henry, and it was just never even close. He never busted off that long one. His long was only 13 yards. Lamar had 6 for 65, so he did his thing when he ran. It was sparingly, but he did get his. And then receiving-wise, Rashad Bateman, 2 touchdowns on 80 yards. Justice Hill, a touchdown on 61 receiving. Zay had 53. Andrew scored. Devontae Walker, the rookie out of UNC, even scored here, which was nice to see. He was supposed to be a really highly touted prospect, but just didn't really get on the fields enough at UNC. But he has the tools, so I mean that's cool to see. I have him stashed on one taxi slot, but certainly will cut him after the season. For the Giants, DeVito left the game with a concussion, so is down to QB4 and Tim Boyle, who threw for 123, a touchdown, and a pick. Really, the only good thing about this
Hey, I'm
offense.
happy for you guys. You get to experience the Tim Boyle experience. It was a fun one when the Jets had that experience going. Remember Black Friday? Ooh, what a
I
game!
know. What a game that was.
What a game!
Before we go back to Tim Boyle, just want to shout out Leak, 10 for 82 and a touchdown. I mean, at least he's the only positive right now for this team, to be honest with you. I mean, he tied Odell Beckham Jr. for most games with 10-plus receptions in a rookie year with 4. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if he broke that the next couple of weeks. And he did hit his over in receiving yards for the season, so I did cash that, which is nice. 91 short of 1,000 for Malik Neighbors. With this quarterback cast, it's pretty impressive. Now, going back to Tim Boyle, I did see apparently in college, this guy had 1 touchdown and 13 picks, and he's been floating around the league getting backup opportunities. And people are like, there's college quarterbacks that throw for 100 touchdowns in their career and never sniff an NFL snap. What is it with Tim Boyle that has him still making rosters and starting games at the end of the season when teams are desperate?
I mean, he must be the ultimate locker room guy. Like, I don't know.
The guy just brings good vibes, like just a good dude.
I guess, bro. I don't know. It's very interesting if you think about it. Like, it's hilarious. I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah,
And what I'll say is I know Mark Andrews just set the Ravens all-time franchise record for touchdowns, which is, kind of crazy to think of. But I mean, I guess it makes sense. The franchise hasn't been around a whole long. So I believe he broke Jamal Lewis's record. So, very cool to see that. And it really speaks to how long Mark Andrews has been playing. Like, you really don't realize it. You're like, damn, like, I guess he has been around for a while. But, Giants just keep losing. You're going to be set up to have your, pick of what quarterbacks you want. And then, with the Ravens, major game coming into this week against the Steelers. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. Giants now, I believe, have roughly a 43% chance to land the number 1 overall pick. So big Raiders fans tonight, currently down 9-3 to the Falcons in the second quarter.
9-3. What did the Falcons get a safety?
There has to be a safety. They had 7, so it has to be a safety.
Huh.
The Cowboys beat the Panthers 30-14. They improved to 6-8. Carolina down to 3-11. Now all those people that were like, "Oh, the Panthers are finally favored." Maybe they shouldn't have been in this one. Cooper Rush, those were 214, 3 touchdowns. Rico Dowdle, 149, 1 yard short of that 150 mark, Reagan. 1 yard short, but this guy's balling right now, dude.
I know. I've been telling you that. I got, that's another guy I got stashed in my dynasty league, so I'm excited about that. And, with Rico Dowdle, like where I'm at right now, and I'm actually debating, starting this guy over Jonathan Taylor or Tyreek Hill next week. I mean, he's been good, dude.
In the semifinals, that's ballsy.
It's ballsy, but he's been on fire. I mean, right now, like I guess Jonathan Taylor's week, you feel a little differently, but Taylor and Hill have struggled a lot. Where Dowdle's getting hot and has been consistent as over the past 4 games, and you need that come playoff times. I'm not looking for a dud. I'm looking for a guy that could put up 100 and, maybe fall in once or twice. And, recently he's been that guy. So, the Cowboys would be in such a different spot too. They're 6-8. If that weird fluky play at the end doesn't happen and you beat the Bengals, I mean, they're one of the hottest teams in football. I mean, they've won 3 of the last 4. They'd almost be on a 4-game winning streak right now. So, very interesting to me. And freaking my Panthers, man, what the hell? I mean, Bryce Young, some bad turnovers, really didn't look great. I mean, he did have the bomb touchdown to Coker, but, I guess that, speaks to why the Panthers have been underdogs the last 37 games. I mean, they're really just not there yet, or whatever it is. That stat was insane. I don't know. Did you see that?
Yeah, no, I did see that. I think it was 30 something that they were underdogs in a row. That's pretty terrible. That's over 2 years in a row of football games.
Yeah. Just not a good game. Not a good game.
I mean, I took the Cowboys here because I was just like, they have the star power, and CeeDee Lamb 9 for 116 and a touchdown. I know Parsons had a sack. He might have had 2, but yeah, I mean, it was really the Stars taking over, and this Panthers defense just has holes everywhere. Can't trust them. Yeah, he had 2. So, I mean, it was nice to see Coker have that long touchdown. He had 4 for 110 and a touchdown. Honestly, that's a very, very sneaky stash in Dynasty. And I pose this to you. I'm so desperate in Matarana's league for my second flex with losing Montgomery, losing Diggs, losing Goddard. It's Quinn Johnson or Jalen Coker next week.
Oh man, that is, yeah.
That is
I mean,
tough. Who would you go with?
that's tough. I'll keep Puka Nacua at my flex in that league, but I don't know. Who are the matchups? Because I mean,
I know
I
Coker
don't
has
know.
a really juicy matchup. I was
It's
looking.
tough because it's like, putting faith in the Panthers is always tough versus at least the Chargers. Like, Herbert's going to put up some numbers, but it is Thursday night too. You might have to go with Coker, just because you don't want to like lock yourself into, Johnston on a Thursday night and give yourself the chance that maybe like some handcuff running back you're able to scoop up.
Yeah, Johnston's got Denver. That's a really tough matchup. Coker has Arizona, which is definitely a much softer matchup.
Yeah, you might be going Coker. I know. I was telling you about
Oh,
that fantasy
man.
football loser bracket thing we were doing, where they have to be
Yeah.
projected under 5, and Crampton picked up Coker, and I think he ended up putting up like almost 50 points this week because he had Coker, he had Singletary, and he had another guy that all put up double digits. And I'm like, are you fucking kidding me, dude? Like the fact that, of course, one of the guys started was Coker, so he got 20, like almost 20 points from the
I know.
dude.
That's actually nuts. Your boy Chuba Hubbard here, 10 for 32, Reagan. Tough look.
Yeah, yeah. I was expecting him to get a higher volume, but the game just got out of control so fast for the Panthers. So I think, if the game script was positive, it would have been a lot different. And just with it getting out of hand so quickly, it was just no need for it. But, you would have liked to see more than 10 carries in this. Just very, very weird utilization.
Yeah, not a good game for the Panthers, man. I was rooting for him for sure, but oh well. Oh well. Your Jets
Oh,
though.
well.
They got a good
Yeah.
win. Yeah, Aaron Rodgers,
Yeah.
Devontae Adams, 32-25
Yeah.
over the Jags. The Jets are now 4-10. Jags 3-11. Rodgers 16 of 30, 289, 3 touchdowns, and it was basically all in the second half. Devontae Adams had 9 for 198 and 2 touchdowns, all in the second half. At halftime, I'm like, God damn, this Devontae Adams guy is screwing me in fantasy. And then
Yeah.
all of a sudden, what Devontae Adams does in fantasy playoffs, he goes off.
He
He's
is good in
rough.
the fantasy playoffs.
He's really good. And he had a 2-point conversion, too. I mean, he looked like vintage Devontae Adams. That was awesome. Garrett Wilson also scored. So did Breece Hall. He didn't get a ton of work, Breece Hall, obviously with the knee, but at least he salvaged his day with that touchdown. For the Jags, Mac Jones throws for 294, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. ETN 65, Bigsby 42 on the ground. Not terrible. Brian Thomas Jr. continues to look like a stud. 10 for 105 and 2 touchdowns here. I mean, at least if you're the Jags, you hit on your first round pick this year. But I want to go back to Mac Jones. I can't stand this guy. He's so goddamn cocky. And he's just not good. He's just not good. He had another 2 picks here, and he's always like celebrating. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. He's just a cocky dude, and I don't
found
like
it amusing just because he's always like played well against the Jets. So I found it funny that he was like celebrating and emoting. I mean, I guess he's got nothing to lose at this point, but yeah, he's not very good. Not very good. And I will say with Adams, it's kind of crazy that like he's going to break 1,000 yards this year. Most likely he's at 860 right now. And that's with, missing all that time in between and getting acclimated to the Jets. So, the fact that he's still going to go over 1,000 is very crazy to me. Because I think a
it
lot of
is.
people that, probably had his over under for receiving yards coming into the year, those futures thought they were dead after he missed those few games. And then, a quick 200-yard receiving game will put you right back in the thick of things.
100%. 100%. I mean, you were looking at Jerry Jeudy in the top 5. You're like, how the hell did that happen? It's like, oh, when he had like 250 yards,
Yeah.
It catapults you up there. So
That it does. That it does.
moving on, the big bet of the week, and I take home yet another. I don't know the record this year, but I know I'm whooping that ass. I think I've lost twice. It's got to be like 8-2.
You owe one. You owe one. You got it. Once you do that, you gotta do yours.
Yeah, but I've only lost 2 all year, bro. That's crazy. Yeah, I just dominate you. It's fun.
There's a couple. Well, in fairness, when you were gone, I ended up lose. I had to do 1 or 2 because I lost when you were gone. So, smaller sample size.
How many did you win when I was MIA for 4 weeks?
I think I went. The 1 week we did Dave and Caleb to mix it up. And then I lost 1 week, and then Dave lost the other week.
Okay. So you got one win.
Yeah,
There you
yeah, yeah,
go.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just
yeah.
need me to be out of the picture to get some wins.
And a
But
push, and a push.
the Texans take care of business 20-12. They're 9-5 now, sitting pretty in the AFC South. Miami drops to 6-8, and their playoff hopes are dire right now. Stroud only threw for $131 and 2 touchdowns. Granted, this Miami secondary is certainly a tough matchup, but still not the same CJ Stroud that we saw last year. Joe Mixon really struggled, 12 for 23. Got a little banged up early in the game, so not a good sign. He did have 33 yards on 5 receptions, so fantasy-wise, at least he got you a little something there. Nico only had 17 yards, but did add 2 touchdowns, but really, it was the Houston defense that took care of business, particularly Derek Stingley Jr. with a couple of picks, I believe, in this one, correct? He had 2?
Yeah, I believe he had 2. Let me check on that.
He
But
did have 2. Yep, he had 2, and
he
Bullock
looked
had
great.
1. Dude, he's a stud, man. He locked down Tyreek. He only had 2 for 36 in this one. I know that Jalen Waddle got a little banged up, did not record a reception here. Not ideal. It was Jonnu Smith scoring the touchdown. Devon Achane really didn't do much, 12 for 41, and he had 7 for 35 through the air, so continues to be a PPR beast. But yeah, this Miami offense really got contained by Houston.
Yeah, no, I mean this one sucks. Yeah, not very happy. Not very happy at all.
Tua
But
with
yeah,
3 picks, man. Oh, some of them were in tough parts of the field too, where they had a chance to put some points on the board.
Yeah, I in my one fantasy league I started Tua, and then my 2 starting running backs are Saquon and Montgomery. So it was rough luck in that league. So let's just say
Those
I'm
guys have been playing so well too, all 3 of them.
packing the bags, but it was very hard watching this Dolphins game. I mean, Tua made some bad mistakes. They couldn't get Tyreek Hill going. Waddle obviously left the game. Just, their season's falling apart. I mean, they're just one of, a couple different teams this year that we expected bigger seasons from that have just really never got it going. I mean, they're very similar to the Jets, the Bengals, who else? The 49ers, Cowboys. It seems like there's like a cluster of like 6 or 7 teams that like should have been a lot better this year that just really underperformed, and you could point to some injuries and stuff, but it's really head scratching that about like what happened between last year and this year.
Yeah, certainly, man. I mean, I thought the Dolphins were going to be a playoff team this year. Unfortunately, I mean, once Tua got hurt, it kind of seemed like they had an uphill battle, but just the whole offense just doesn't look the same this year compared to last year. But
The Dolphins off. Yeah, I mean, it seems like the big plays are just gone. It just seems like all their big plays come off of screen passes. Like they're not designing those bomb plays downfield. Like Waddle and Tyreek really aren't getting loose, and the ones that are Jonnu Smith and Achane, and it seems like they're like tight end screens or running back screens are just. It's weird. It's weird because even Achane really isn't breaking those big plays like he was last year. I mean, he's getting it done for fantasy based off of volume, not the big plays. That was the complete opposite last year.
100%. And Houston, with the win, basically solidifies the division with the Colts losing to Denver. How big of a threat do you see them in the AFC? For me, I think they're a team that can win a game in the playoffs, but I'm not picking them over Buffalo or Kansas City or Baltimore, maybe even Pittsburgh in the divisional round if it comes down to it, depending on who they draw. Depends on who they draw.
Houston is going to be the 4 seed. Like they locked in the division. They're definitely going to be the 4 seed.
So they're going to get either Baltimore
or Baltimore, regardless, first round exit. Both of those teams are just going to out physical the Houston Texans. Like I don't see them getting to the second round this year. Nope.
Yeah, I really don't either. And it's like Mixon struggled in this one, and Baltimore and Pittsburgh both really tough matchups for a running back. So it's going to be on Stroud's arm if those are the matchups you get. And Pittsburgh's secondary has performed a lot better than Baltimore's. But still, I just don't have faith in this Houston team right now to make.
Nor should you. I mean, nor should you. To be honest,
they don't look dangerous. They don't look dangerous. They look like they're a product of having arguably the easiest division in football.
Yeah, I mean that's what it comes down to. You put them in a different division. They're not dominating like this. I mean they've lost a lot of bad games this year, and a lot of their wins are like I believe. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have like four of their 9 wins are in the division. Yeah, they're 4-1 in the division. So, that puts them at 4-4 out of division games.
Yeah,
so I'm sorry, that's wrong. It puts them at 5-3. Wait, no, 5-4. They're 5-4. They've beaten the Dolphins. They've beaten the Cowboys. They lost to the Jets and the Lions. They lost to the Packers. They beat the Patriots, so that's not a good team. They did beat the Bills, so that's impressive. They
Yes.
got smoked by the Vikings and they beat the Bears. I mean, their best win is beating the Bills, but I don't know. I just really don't believe in this team. We'll see. These last three games will be very telling because you get Kansas City and Baltimore. And hey, I mean, the funny thing is they play, they play the Ravens on Christmas on that Wednesday at home, and they might be playing the Ravens again 2 weeks later at home.
Wow. I mean, that'll
So,
be a big game. Absolutely.
mhm.
Speaking of those Colts, they got their ass kicked by the Denver Broncos, 31-13. Indy now at 6-8. Tough to make the playoffs. Denver at 9-5, sitting pretty here. Who would have thought Sean Payton and Bo Nix getting it done? Bo
Not
only threw
me.
for 130, did have 3 touchdowns, but 3 picks. He threw 3 interceptions. His team still scored 31 points, which is crazy. And offensively, they didn't really move the ball very well. Like their leading receiver was Sutton with 32. He did score. Their leading rusher was Nix with 23, but they were able to get it done. I mean, Anthony Richardson struggled again against the top tier defense, and this is kind of what I saw coming. He threw for 172, 2 interceptions, completion percentage below 50 yet again. Taylor had 22 for 107, but I mean, everyone just thinks about him dropping the ball before the goal line. Really, really brutal for a lot of
Yeah.
people. I saw someone lost like a $10 bet to win 7,000 in monster parlay, and the only leg that didn't hit was Jonathan Taylor anytime touchdown. And I know you
Yeah.
had Taylor in fantasy, so a lot of people really hurt by that one.
Yeah. No, I would be fuming if I didn't have a buy in that league. But yeah, I that was head scratching. And I don't understand how players do that. They're so worried about
It
their
doesn't make sense.
celebration. They're just so worried about their freaking celebration. It's like, dude, just like I would think after the amount of players that have done it, like these players wouldn't continue to do it. And that was the turning point of the game. I mean, they go up 2 scores if that touchdown stands, and it just seemed like they were, really hanging around. But after that, the offense went stagnant. And that's completely where the game turned to me. I know it's not decided on one play, but that is where they lost all the momentum, and the Broncos just flipped a script or flipped a switch after that. So, this was when the Colts had to have, and now you do not really control your own destiny. You're now 2 games back of the Chargers. So you need them to, lose, I believe, all 3, or you might be able to get it. I don't know how the tiebreakers work out, but you need a lot of help. So it seems like their season's, coming to an end very soon.
Yeah, I mean, a positive, I guess, for Richardson is he did have another touchdown on this one on 46 rushing yards, his 4th rushing touchdown in the last 4 games. Still a threat with the legs, but he's got to figure it out through the air. Pittman did have 58 on 6 catches, the leading receiver, but really this Colts passing attack, nothing to write home about with Richardson under center.
Yeah, no, definitely not. No, I mean, I am impressed by the Broncos in a sense. Like they just keep getting it done. I mean, even Bo Nix didn't look his best this game, but like the defense is, very legit. So, they're a team that could get an upset. I mean, it'll be interesting because if they come in at the 6, like, they're gonna end up catching. I mean, it looks like they'll probably end up catching the Ravens or the Steelers or maybe the Texans. And the way that defense is playing, you never know. I mean, they would match up really well with Pittsburgh and Pittsburgh. That would be an ugly defensive battle. And I also
Yeah,
feel
they're
like
a dangerous
Houston they
team. I
could
think they're
beat.
a team. Like I don't think they can win the title, don't get me wrong, but they can certainly steal one on the road with that defense. And with Sean Payton, you know what I mean? He's got the pedigree.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be something if they somehow snuck into this? I'd love to see, a Cinderella type Super Bowl one of these years where just one of the teams completely sneaks in.
Yeah, that'd be cool. Unless you have any futures, but we'll see. We'll see.
I
The
got nothing on the
Bills,
AFC, so
the
maybe
Bills
I'll
take
need to.
care of Detroit 48-42, 90 total points. I had a teaser in which I had over 42 in the teaser. The Lions pushed it by themselves. The Bills covered it by themselves. Crazy, man. Crazy. The Bills now 11-3. Detroit 12-2. Josh Allen, I said it. Called it last week. This is going to be his stamp for the MVP. He's going to ball out here. And he did. He threw for 362, 2 touchdowns, added 68 on the ground, and 2 touchdowns. Over 40 fantasy points out of Josh Allen this week. He's rolling right now. James Cook also had a monster game, 105 and 2 touchdowns. I mean, of course, their leading receiver was Ty Johnson, 5 for 114.
Yeah, that was insane. Who had that on their bingo card? Where was him? Should have picked his ass up and started
Yeah,
him.
what the hell,
Apparently,
man? It doesn't matter who plays receiver or running. It does not matter when Josh Allen's on the field. He just looks like Superman right now. Keon Coleman had a 64-yard reception, his return. Kincaid 4 for 53. As the Bills always do, they spread the ball around and lit up this Detroit defense. Goff threw for 494 and 5 touchdowns in a losing effort. Really brutal here. Gibbs only had 31 rushing, did have a touchdown. Obviously, Montgomery did not play much, only 5 carries with the MCL injury. Gibbs did add another touchdown through the air, 5 for 83. Laporta, 7 for 111. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, career high 14 receptions, career high 193 yards, and a touchdown, of course, going against him in 2 leagues. Just a brutal matchup. But, a monster game for both offenses. Question marks for both defenses.
Yeah, no, a fantasy football player's dream was this matchup. I mean, honestly, like if you have Buffalo Bills players, or I guess just Josh Allen, you've been very happy recently. Now, James Cook's obviously been, balling out too, but I don't know. I mean, both teams are going to be in the playoffs. I'm a little worried about both teams for their defenses, but at least the Bills are healthy. But their biggest kryptonite will be the Chiefs. But the Lions, man, it just sucks seeing all these injuries. But it's going to be very important for them to hold on to that bye, because I don't think Philly loses again. So if Detroit's to drop one more, which with all the injuries and still having to play Minnesota again, I think it's very, very possible that they could drop another one. They're just the injury bug's killing them.
Which team are you more confident to make the Super Bowl? Assuming both teams either get a bye or both teams do not get a bye. So equal ground. Which team do you have a stronger conviction can make the run to the Super Bowl?
Buffalo, because of the way Allen's been playing, and also all the injuries Detroit has right now. It's just too many injuries to overcome.
Even though they have to go through Kansas City, you're still going to go Buffalo?
Yeah, I will. Josh Allen's playing like I've never seen him play this well.
No, I've never. I mean, this is
like he's on a whole nother level than he's ever been. I mean, he's 100%. Not turning over the ball either. That's that was always my biggest knock on him, is the turnovers, and they're just not there. They're not there. So, it does make me a little nervous that he has to be Superman like that every game, because if he has one hiccup game, like, will they still win? But I don't know. He's getting it done, so you can't knock him. He just keeps doing it.
Yeah, I think I'd probably lean Buffalo too, just because for Detroit, particularly on the defensive line, the amount of injury is just who they could match up with. Philadelphia, the way they've been running the ball, and Green Bay, the way they've been running the ball, I think pose massive threats to Detroit. Where Buffalo, even if they're the 2 seed, I feel like going through Buffalo for the other teams in the conference will be insurmountable with the way Josh Allen's playing. So I feel more confident with the Bills getting to the AFC Championship game if they're the 2 seed and matching up with Kansas City than I would Detroit getting the NFC Championship game if they were to get the 2 seed. So I will also lean Buffalo, and that's just because of the tough matchups that I think Detroit could draw in the NFC in that divisional round.
Yeah, no, fair. I mean, it'll be interesting. It really will. I mean, I don't know what else to say, but outside of it'll be interesting. I'm excited, man. The playoffs can't come soon enough.
I know. It's about that time. It's like, we're right there. We're right there.
Oh, we right
Speaking
there.
of those Philadelphia Eagles, they take care of Pittsburgh at home, 27-13. Philly now 12-2, 6-1 at home. Pittsburgh 10-4. That Philly defense just, I mean, they look so good compared to last year. It's unbelievable. And you talk about adding Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean in the back end. Obviously, Vic Fangio, huge part of that. I mean, they lost Reddick and they brought in Bryce Huff, and Bryce Huff really hasn't had that big of an impact, but their defense is still significantly better. And you can point to the linebacker position as well, with Bond and Nakobe Dean playing good football. But they took care of Russell Wilson this one. He only threw for 128 and a touchdown. The run game was non-existent. Najee had 6 for 14. Just terrible. Freiermuth had a touchdown, but that's really about it for Pittsburgh. And for Philadelphia, Hurts threw the ball more than 30 times. 25 of 32, 292 touchdowns. Barkley still had 19 carries for 65 yards, dealing with a bit of an injury. It's minor. Doesn't sound terrible because Gainwell was getting a lot of run in that game. He had 7 for 20. Jalen Hurts had a touchdown on the ground, 45 yards. And yes, it was A.J. Brown week, of course. As soon as he said, get me the ball, he had 8 for 110 and a touchdown. Devontae Smith, 11 for 109 and a touchdown. The dynamic duo getting it done for Philadelphia.
Yeah, no, I mean, I got my big Eagles future. I got them to make it to the Super Bowl, so I am loving this. I really would like them to lock up the 1 seed. I mean, right now, they do seem like one of the most complete teams in football, if not the most complete team in football. No, I definitely think they are the most complete team. I don't think there's any team you could point to right now that have, you could say is, both dominant on offense and defense like they are. I mean, you look at the Lions and Bills, defensively, you wouldn't consider them dominant. And then you look at Kansas City right now, like while they still have Mahomes and stuff, that offense definitely has not been dominating teams.
They've yet to score
Um,
30 points in a game.
so yeah, I think right now Philly's really the most complete team in the league right now. And I was nice to see that Saquon was obviously banged up in this game, and they were still able to beat him. And Jalen Hurts is like, hey, like I might not need to be a passer or a pocket passer, but I can do it. But I can do it when
100%.
needed. So he stepped up, and I was impressed. I really was impressed with Philly. I didn't know what to expect, because obviously we've seen how at times um what was I going to say, the Steelers can just get these road victories and muck it up, and the Eagles didn't let the Steelers play the kind of football they wanted to play in this one.
I agree. This answered a lot of questions for Philadelphia where they weren't relying on Hurts, but not only did he lead them with his arm in this one, but it was against a 10-4, now 10-4, now at the time 10-3 Steelers team that has a damn good defense. So it just checked a lot of boxes for me. This is a really good sign if you're a Philadelphia fan.
Mm-hmm. No, it's a great sign, dude. Honestly, I was very impressed with this.
Arizona 30-17 win over the Pats. They're now 7-7. They're in the thick of things still in the NFC West. The Pats dropped to 3-11. Just a waste of a season here. I mean, at least Drake May threw for 200 and had a touchdown. Did throw a pick, though. Ramondre 13 for 69. Other than that, nothing really to write home about here. Jamario Douglas, I guess, scored a touchdown. Drake May had a rushing touchdown, so that's cool. For Arizona, Kyler threw for 224. No touchdowns, though. Kind of, not in the same level that he was earlier in the season, so not ideal there. James Conner did have 110 and 2 touchdowns because that's what he does in the fantasy playoffs. This guy goes to work. Monster game out of him. McBride, 9 for 87. Of course, no touchdown, though, for Trey, but continues balling out. And Marv, 2 for 32. His struggles also continue.
Yeah, I mean, on Marv had a lot of red zone targets here. It was just Christian Gonzalez just shut him down. And with Trey McBride, it's funny. I don't know if you saw, but he set the record for most receptions without a receiving touchdown. He does, in fact, have 2 this year. One was a fumble recovery touchdown, and the other was a rushing touchdown, but no receiving. He now has the record at 89 catches in a season without a touchdown. So, and that'll probably only get bigger. And I know they were even trying to design a play where they had all the motion and they pitched it forward and he got stuffed. And it's just like, damn,
they're trying, dude. They're trying.
89 catches without a touchdown. We'll have 3 more games to do it. And I mean, that's still, if he does do it, I wonder if the Cardinals have any primetime games. That would be a fun one to get Trey McBride on the wheel, just knowing that they're going to be, dialing some shit up for him.
Yeah, I think he'll get it. I think he'll get one before the end of the season. My biggest takeaway from this game is I am trading Kyler Murray in my Superflex league after the season because I can't stand him coming up short in the fantasy playoffs anymore. It's just once Call of Duty comes out the end of October, this guy just becomes a shell of himself, and I'm just over it. So I'm getting rid of Kyler Murray. I'm done with this Arizona offense for fantasy besides Trey McBride for the foreseeable future.
They might have a primetime game against the Rams in week 17, so we'll see. But a Trey McBride wheel spin would be fun for his first touchdown.
I like that matchup too against Los Angeles.
Yeah, I mean, the dude's balling out. I mean, I fully expected it. This is exactly what I thought would happen with him this year. So, it's great to see that. And like I said, it's 1A and 1B with him and Bowers as the tight ends in fantasy. And on the Patriots side of things, I mean, there's not a whole lot to write home on here. So, that it's just a lost season for them as well. But at least Drake May is, proven that he's the guy.
Yeah, they really need to address the offensive line. They have to. He just doesn't really have much time there. He's getting beat up. Like, they need to address multiple offensive line positions.
They need to get him some weapons too.
And it's
that can get separation.
Yeah, 100%. Like, if I think they'll probably snag Travis Hunter if they get the 3rd pick because you can use him as a weapon, right? I mean, he's just too good of a prospect. but they need to address the offensive line heavily in free agency. And you brought up the Trey McBride, Brock Bowers 1A, 1B discussion as well. My buddy Mike Seawack was listening. He's like, oh, I love that you had that debate, Bowers versus McBride, because in our dynasty league, he has both, and he runs 12. He goes, you like my 12? You like my 12 personnel? He starts both tight ends, and I'm like, dude, it's really the only tandem you could go with 12 personnel with and feel comfortable about it in your fantasy lineups because they're both so
right now,
good.
Kittle you can too.
Yeah, you could with Geno. Yes, you're right.
The only reason he is not in that discussion for dynasty is because of the age. Like,
yeah.
But like in redraft, like Kittle has been better than both of them this year for fantasy. I believe Kittle's the tight end 1 for fantasy. Like he's been on a whole nother level this year.
I thought Bowers was tight end 1.
I don't think so because Kittle has been. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's Kittle, bro.
Well, Kittle has the touchdown advantage for sure.
Yeah, but even his yards.
No,
is like,
Bowers is 1. Bowers is 1.
What is Kittle? Kittle was 1 for a while.
He was.
No, Kittle's 1. Oh, you know what it is? Kittle's 1 and half point. Bowers is 1 and full point because Bowers,
Okay, yeah, Kittle is 3 in full because he has the touchdowns. Where
That's
Bowers and McBride have more receptions. Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, I was gonna say, I thought I saw he was, okay. So where he's 1 for half point, but regardless, so those have been like the top 3 guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Tampa Bay 40-17 win over the Chargers. They exploded in the second half, 17-13 halftime deficit, and they scored 27 unanswered in the second half to improve to 8-6, take control of the NFC South. The Chargers dropped to 8-6, but still in a fine spot for a playoff position. Baker threw for 288, 4 touchdowns and a pick. I'm really surprised Tampa Bay hung 40 on the number 1 scoring defense in football, the Chargers. I thought the Chargers would be able to contain them. Baker would have more turnovers, but he looked really, really damn good in this one, and it was to Mike Evans, 9 for 159 and 2 touchdowns, closing in on yet another 1,000-yard season. Jalen McMillan, the rookie out of Washington, 5 for 75 and a touchdown. You love to see that. Rachaad White had a touchdown through the air, but it was Bucky Irving on the ground, 15 for 117 against this really stout Chargers run defense. I love that as a Bucky Irving holder.
Yeah, it seems like he'll break 1,000 yards this year. He's at 852 now, so he should, get over 1,000 rushing yards for his first year, which is great. And Mike Evans obviously having 159 in this game, so now he's at 749. Needs 251 in his last 3, so I would be very happy if I had Mike Evans in fantasy because I think they're going to try to really get him that. So I think, even if the Bucs are leading in some of their upcoming games, like they might keep him in a little bit longer and try to manufacture targets for him. And the good thing is he has the Cowboys and the Panthers the next 2 weeks. So those are 2 matchups they should win. So I think there's a chance where you get some really high fantasy games again from him.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, the only league where I have Bucky Irving, I'm eliminated, but I'm really excited about the future of Bucky Irving in my lineup. Herbert threw for 195, 2 touchdowns and a pick here. The run game, again, really struggled without J.K. Dobbins. It was Ladd, 5 for 58 and a touchdown. Quentin Johnson, 5 for 45 and a touchdown. But really, this Chargers offense was contained all day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little shocked, honestly. I mean, I expected a better output from the Chargers. I mean, it was close at halftime, and they kind of just like fell apart in the second half. I mean, they 100% did. They were scoreless, but they were leading 17-13 at halftime, and all of a sudden the Bucs just flipped a switch in the second half, and the Chargers, I don't know what happened, but they couldn't get anything going offensively, and defensively it was just, the Mike Evans show, and McMillan obviously had the good game, but just and both running backs were having their ways, but it just seemed like the Chargers defense just forgot how to play defense. So I don't know. I mean, now the Chargers, like, you still have 2-game lead on, I believe, everybody. So, they still really do control their own destiny. Yeah, they're 2 up on the Colts. They're 2 up on the Dolphins. They're 2 up on the Bengals. So, and they have the head-to-head over the Bengals. So, I mean, and I'm looking at it right now, the conference record. I mean, they're 5-4. Colts are 5-5. Dolphins are 5-5. So, really, Chargers really just need 1 more to get in. I mean, 2 to be safe, but they got the Broncos, Patriots, and Raiders. So I'm not too worried. I'm sure they'll at least win one of those 2 against the Broncos and Raiders, but they should win both. And, they could obviously beat the Broncos too. So,
yeah, I'm not super concerned about the Chargers. I mean, every now and then teams just throw up a dud. I'm going to count it as that here. Now, if they drop another to a poor team, then I'm fairly concerned about what they can do in the playoffs, but not quite yet for me. Final game of the recap, Sunday Night Football. The Packers beat the brakes off the Seahawks, improved to 10-4, a 30-13 win. Seattle now 8-6. So monster win for Green Bay as they're gunning for that wild card positioning. Jordan Love threw for 229, 2 touchdowns. Josh Jacobs 94 and a touchdown. He continues to run the ball really well. And in Green Bay fashion, spread the ball around through the air. Watson leading receiver 56, but Dobbs had 2 touchdowns in this one. For Seattle, Geno 149 and a pick before leaving with the knee. Then Howell comes in 5 of 14, 24 and a pick. Yuck.
Yeah. Yuck is right.
Charbonnet punched one in, 54 on the ground. JSN, clearly the leading receiver here, 10 for 83 on 12 targets, while DK was second, 3 for 28 on 3 targets. But not ideal for the Seattle offense in the fantasy playoffs if you got to go with Sam Howell after looking about how he did against Green Bay this past week.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, dude. Like, just not a whole lot of production. The Seattle offense just couldn't get going all game. And I mean, Zach Charbonnet, they really abandoned the run game quickly. I mean, he was 8 for 54 and a touchdown, and he looked great the week prior against the Cardinals. So I'm not really sure why they kind of just didn't. They gave up on it too quickly to me. And then obviously once you bring in Sam Howell at that point, it was a little bit too late. But I would have liked to see them try to get them going more. And in verse, like on the other side, like the Packers, it just seemed like they were like, yeah, Josh Jacobs is, the catalyst. Like, let's get the run game going. And early on, they were just running it down their throat with Jacobs, and it really opened up the pass game. But I don't know. I mean, that shows you why the scoreboard reflects it. But, I would like to see Seattle, whether it's Walker or Charbonnet, really, stop trying to put so much pressure on your quarterbacks and, lean in more on the run game and play some more physical football.
I agree. I mean, and Charbonnet's look good too. It's not even like that's
really
the
good.
issue. Like without Walker, like I don't know. I just
like
think
I would say he's just as good as Walker, to be honest. The way he's looked, like in all the games where he's subbed in and got enough touches.
I don't
like,
think he's better than Walker for the
no,
longest.
no.
They've been
He's
the
not
same
better than
team.
Walker.
They've been on the same team for 2 years, and up until this recent stretch where Walker's been fully out of the picture, Walker has always outproduced him for the most part.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying he's better than Walker, but I'm saying to me, I don't think the gap's as big as people think. And I think, he's showing that when he gets the job, he can produce. So I think it's pretty evident that he deserves a bigger role when they're both on the field. Like, he's just showing that he should at least be getting, close to double-digit touches in a game versus being at like that, 5 range. So I'd like to see them just and that basically comes back to my point of I would like to see them, try to run the ball 30 times a game, and maybe that's Walker taking 20 carries and Charbonnet getting 10. But stop putting so much pressure on Geno Smith. And I know you got the great wide receiver core, but just it's not working. It's not working.
Yeah, I mean, JSN has looked like a stud though. Like it's kind of like looking back to him at Ohio State, and I know he didn't really play his last year at Ohio State, slipped in the draft at 20th to Seattle, but after that bowl game performance when he went for over 300, everyone's like, holy shit, like this guy's a stud. And you're kind of seeing that now. Like that, you thought he was a blue chip prospect after that, and then he missed the full season, and obviously the rookie year didn't go as planned. Thank you, Shane Waldron. But this is the guy that you kind of saw at Ohio State and thought, yes, this is a blue chip prospect at wide receiver that's going to be a stud in the league.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for the Packers, is there anyone that you feel comfortable starting next week in your fantasy matchup outside of Josh Jacobs? Because for me, I'm not starting anybody.
Yeah, Tucker Kraft. You can play him. I mean, at the tight end position, like
if you're desperate.
But you always are at the tight end position. If you don't have one of the top tier guys, like
who's their matchup?
Let me check. I mean, for tight ends, I don't ever factor in the matchup though, to be honest, because
they got New Orleans. That's a good matchup. It's a good matchup.
I don't even know if there are good matchups for tight ends though. It's like unless you have one of the top tier guys, like you're just banking on a touchdown. But at least we have seen Kraft does seem to be the safety blanket. I think he could have had a better game in this one if they weren't control the whole time. Like Love only threw the ball 27 times, so that I don't love the matchup, if anything, just because of that aspect. But I just think Kraft would be the only other guy. I mean, Love obviously you could play as well, but the wide receivers stay away from it as a whole.
Yeah, I am too. The only
It's the
guy I
receiver.
did have rostered is Jaden Reed. He had 5 for 34, 3 carries for 27, but the volume's just not there right now. They just spread the ball out too much.
Yeah. No, I mean, he will have his weeks, but I mean, obviously Dobbs was the one that got in twice. It was his night, and Watson obviously has his week. So it's just like you said, they spread the ball, but it always seems like it's just one guy going off the wide receiver core, and then the other guys are kind of dudding.
For sure. That wraps up our recap, Reagan. Any last words from you, my friend?
Hey, man, just the crew necks, like we've been saying, just keep buying them. What else? Fantasy playoffs. I hope you moved on to the next round. Let's take care of business in the semis and then get to those championships. Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm in 4 semifinal matchups next week out of 5 leagues. So, we're feeling pretty good about our odds to at least take 1 ring home.
Just one.
Or a belt. That'll suffice as well. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll catch you later in the week for our Week 16 predictions.